Yes. Now we're here. We did it. So good to see you, Nilu. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I've been looking forward to this. It's interesting. I recently took the free sessions with Stu McLaren on membership building and Facebook groups, and I'm watching what people are doing. And I'm looking forward to learning more from you, because I can see there's a definite strategy and there's definitely ways to bring people into the fold. So I'm looking forward to talking with you about that. I usually start, and I will today, giving a digital marketing tip. I've been really focusing on email marketing lately. I hate the word email marketing, but if you think of it as email giving, maybe that's a better way to talk about it. Right now, things are so noisy everywhere that sometimes it's nice to have a way to like nurture a person and to have a conversation with a person who has said, you know what, I'd love to hear from you. Here's my email address. They've given you their email address, but how do you get to rise above the noise, rise above the reads, and show up in their inbox? So I've been thinking about subject lines, because if they don't open your email, don't even, why bother? So I'm going to talk about, the other day I talked about headers, the subject lines and pre-headers, and today I want to talk about a couple of quick trends. So if you will humor me for a minute, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So we're going to talk about a couple of trends for great subject lines, right? So one of the things that's helping people get to open more emails is making it personalized. So there are a few things you can do to make your subject lines feel personal and to catch subscribers' attention. So you want to use you or your, and you can personalize their first name. So one stat that I've found is that when the first word in the subject line is you or your, the open rates increase significantly, like over 22% is what I've been seeing in stats. So why not, right? Put something you there. So in this example, it says, are your Google ads not showing up? This could be why. So another stat that I found is that using a subscriber's name with the word your to make it feel personal. So you could say like, Rachel, your personalized blah, blah, blah is here. So depending on the topic of your email, you can personalize the subject line, and you might add in other details that are known about your subscribers to make it relevant. So one of the things we talked about last time was the length of the subject line of the pre-header. So I would say to you that these are actually a little bit long, especially for viewing on mobile. But just remember this, it comes back to the three things that people see in the inbox that play a role in getting people to open your email. It's the from name, the subject and the pre-header text, and making it personalized. So hopefully that works out good. Next week I have another one about emojis in the subject line, which is going to be fun. But right now, let me stop sharing my screen and make sure that I'm broadcasting properly. We are live on Facebook in the Rise Above Noise group. We're on Zoom and ready to go with my favorite part, which is introducing my guest. I have to find that. Nilu and I met in the Happy Catalyst inner circle with our friend Rita. And guys, if you haven't checked that out, this is a shout out to Rita, who is putting together a group of like people who are out there making differences and sharing. And so interesting that I'm saying this, because when I asked, I'll get back to this. All right, so I'm going to return to this. Let me do the official stuff. I was getting so excited. So let me get to the official bio for Nilu. I'm finding it. Okay. Nilu is a marketing consultant. The name of her company is, you could say it's Kamiss. Is that how you say it, Nilu?
Yeah.
Okay. And today we're going to talk about how to use Facebook groups to take your business relationship building to the next level. Why use a group versus a business page, what mistakes group owners are making, and how to up your engagement so you can build rapport. But what I was getting to before and talking about the heart, the happy catalyst and the heart-centered people is when I asked Nilu what her superpower was, she said it's problem solving and empathy. And I think that's what's happening with the people that I've been meeting lately is this is who we're attracting. And that's how it is to be real and solve problems and to have empathy, especially in these days where it's just flat screen. And here we are trying to make connections. Thank you for being with me today, Nilu.
Thank you for having me. And I love that you're bringing up the problem solving and empathy, which is so true. I agree with you 100%. Right now, I see a need for bringing that out more than ever.
Yes, it's so true. So true. So if you guys are here, I forgot to say, if you guys are on Facebook, I'm having a little trouble finding it on Facebook, or here on Zoom, go ahead and you can let Nilu know that you're here in the chat. If you have questions, you'll certainly have questions. Pop them in there. I'll be monitoring it. And I'm going to just ask Nilu, like, go ahead, tell me why a group? Why not a page? What's the difference?
So I'll kind of give you a little bit of background on why I got started on groups. I was really frustrated with Facebook pages. I kept building page after page, and it would gain momentum in the first 100 to 300 people. I had great engagement, and then after I got to a certain number, it seemed like it just dropped, right? Now, these are specifically groups that were pages that were built for business presence, right? Not necessarily like the interest sort of groups. So I think that has a huge part to do with it because people feel like when they're interacting with a business, it's a different kind of relationship, right? But anyways, going back, I started doing the building a group because I felt like there was not a lot of opportunity on pages to build that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
For one reason, the biggest reason being that you weren't getting that reach, right? And that reach is combined with engagement, right? Because inside of a group, you're having a conversation, you're having a two-sided conversation. And basically you don't feel like, as a member of a group, you feel like, okay, I have equal say or opportunity to say what I have to say. Whereas on a page, the whole point of a page is to have a billboard for your business or your interests, so to speak, right? So you're the only person that can actually post on your page that's visible publicly, right? I mean, I can go and post on your page, Susan, for example, but it won't be visible unless somebody goes into the community tab or, guest post tab, right? Which is not something that we normally do. I don't even
Right.
know where it is, to be honest, like off the top of my head, right?
Yes, I've never gone to somebody's business page and gone over to their community. Well, every once in a while if I'm really digging in deep.
Right.
But we can see if they respond to a post, but they can't just post on the page, right?
Right,
That's
right,
business page.
exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a balance of figuring out your custom avatar, obviously, right? If you know what your avatar is really going gaga over, right, you can then post and get that interaction, that engagement going, even on a page, right? But I find because it is a business entity, pages have been like almost like they've gotten this black mark from Facebook because they don't create that engagement. A lot of people just don't understand how to use it. So we just kind of slap things on, and then pages as a whole don't get that reach because of that, right? Now, of course, there's strategies on how to build that as well. But I just find that building communities, and I like to use the word communities because for me, when I'm thinking of utilizing groups, I'm not just gathering a bunch of people together. I'm actually creating a place where everybody can have equal say. We're creating a community together. It's not just my group or my business group, right? And I think that's where um, a lot of people kind of get sidetracked is when they're building a group for their business, they feel like they have to have all of these rules and keep emphasizing on the rules that not everybody might feel comfortable with, right? Now, of course, there's a fine line, right? Because we do need rules. It's just how are you transferring that message? Is it this is a rule, and if you break it, you're out? Or here are the rules. As we grow our community, are we open to changing it up based on the feedback from the members, right? So that's kind of what I feel, groups are really great for, because we have that open conversation. We have the opportunity for that open conversation. And, Facebook's algorithm naturally helps us grow because it wants people to be on the platform, right? So when you're having great engagement, growing your group and getting it out to more eyes that resonate with your message becomes a lot easier, as opposed to pages. So that's
So,
kind of
yeah.
where I would sit.
So you have a page and a group?
I do.
Yes.
Although I don't, so my page, because it's a business page, I don't necessarily use it as a place to share a ton of content, right? I mean, again, there is a strategy, and honestly, I'm not saying I utilize it to its full potential. One reason being, I'm focusing on where I'm getting results right now, as opposed to trying to do 100 different things that's not really benefiting like the overall big picture, right? So for me, I've decided I'm going to keep the page active because we need a page,
Yes.
right? How your
Mm-hmm.
business is going to be searchable on Facebook, right? So if you're marketing on Facebook, you absolutely should have a page, even if it only has 50 followers, right? But how much time you're spending building it, especially if you don't have a clear strategy, that's where you need to kind of be like, okay, am I spending my time wisely?
Mm-hmm.
Can I spend that time elsewhere to really build those connections, right? And to be honest, when I first started this, like doing Facebook and social media consulting, I didn't actually put time in building a page. I didn't actually have a page till, I'm gonna say, about a year ago is when I started my page. So the community is kind of where I started. I started building relationships and like basically funneling people into my Facebook group. And I'm happy to say, like, most of the people I started with are still like super engaged members inside of the group. So it's it's definitely picking the priorities and finding a clear strategy for your business too, right?
Exactly. I think I do similarly. I have the Susan Finn Online, which it's still called that, and even though I changed my name, Rise Above Noise. But Susan Finn Online is my business page, and that's just hints and tips and things that are coming up. And it like you said, it's a billboard. I'd like to talk about it like if you're driving down the highway, you're like, oh, there it is. Or somebody can say, oh, it's that billboard at the end of the road, and they can drive traffic to go see what you have and your expertise and your services and what's coming up, but to build those relationships that happens in the group. How many groups are you running these days?
Running, about 6. Actively running, right? I think I'm in about 100. I don't even
I
know.
know, it's crazy.
Because people keep adding me to groups to like evaluate their group or do like assessments. So once I'm in there, I like to kind of go in there and support them, of course, right? But it all comes back to how many hours do you have in a day?
Right. So I have a system, but I'm very curious to see what your system is for managing your groups,
Mhm,
one, two, managing your activity in the other groups. So let's
mhm.
talk about time management first, and then I have another question.
Sure. So in terms of managing your time and content on where you're sharing, I think it comes down to again, knowing your customer avatar and finding out where you're going to be hanging out. Now, it's a balance for me. It's a balance of like my preferences, because it's not always about finding the right client, right? We're human. We want to explore things that we love to do. So obviously I'm in groups that are my personal preferences, right? um but in terms of, obviously, we're talking business building. So when you're looking for groups that you want to engage in, you want to contribute to, you need to figure out, okay, where is it that my customers, my ICAs would hang out, and pick the ones that really makes sense for timing, right? Like managing your time. Because if you're spending 30 minutes a day posting to, let's say, 5 different groups, and 4 out of those 5 are places that are not relevant for your ICA, then that's time that you're just wasting away, where you could have applied it somewhere else, right? And so what I do is I have a list of groups and they always change depending on what I'm doing. I don't only focus on one specific group for a long period of time. I like to rotate it. But my general tip is pick about 3 groups. 3 is the ideal number, because I find that when you do more than 3, it gets a lot more complex to keep track,
Okay.
especially when you're just actively engaging, right? Um, 5 is an okay number too if you're really organized. I have an Excel sheet where I actually track some of the things that happen inside of the whatever groups I'm engaged in right now. So, for example, I'd figure out when are the days that each group, or maybe they're pretty open depending on the group. When can I post about my business, right? And it might not be necessarily saying, hey, here's what I do. It might be just piquing interest, like talking about the topic that your business focuses on, right? Creating those conversations. But not every group is open to that, so you have to be careful, because you can get your hand slapped or
Mhm,
removed even if you
mhm.
break those rules, right? So tracking that is really important, because that way, in the morning when you go and open your Excel sheet, you can see, okay, here's the group that I need to promote. It's promo Thursday in this group. So I'm going to go post, what I'm doing right now in terms of promotions, right? So again, it all comes down to like directing people where to go and all of that stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of the system I use, in terms of like managing where I'm spending my time, right? And then once I like, let's say I'm running a promotion to, capture people into my group coaching program. I'd rotate. So if I'm doing 3 different groups in the next, 2 weeks, I build those relationships and see where the interest goes, kind of thing. And then if, once I do the 2 week time frame, and in those 2 weeks, I'd share a ton of, information. I might do lives with the permission of the admin. So there's tons of different things you can do, to kind of get that focus on you, right? And then once those 2 weeks are up, I will gradually transition into another 3 groups. Now, that's not to say I just ignore
Interesting.
the other groups, right? You don't want to do that, because, again, you're building relationships. So you want to make sure that you're following up with the people that you've connected with and all of that. But also it's really important to remember to invite people to join your group too, right? If that's something that you're doing, that has to be a call to action. So making sure that you're telling people about your group is also important. Again, just be sensitive to the rules in that specific community, because you don't want to look like you're poaching other people's clients, right?
Right. That's so true. I like what you were talking about, and I think Kathleen Lawson had mentioned this recently too, that because she's all about systems, that you have a spreadsheet and you keep track of the days that the different groups allow you to post.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I have too is a sheet. I don't have that, which I'm going to start doing, but the sheet that I have is the list of the groups that I'm in and the week ending, right? And then what I'll do is keep track of when I've posted, when I've just interacted in the group and what I've been talking about. And then if I've posted an ask, come to my webinar, join my group, if I've posted an ask, because I don't want to just keep posting asks. I
Right.
want to show up, engage. And so on the other days, what I'll do is I'll just open all the tabs and then I'll just go down, because that's a really good strategy to do 3 at a time to like really build your relationships in there and then ease up. But I open up the tabs and then I'll scroll down and I'll give thumbs up and I'll do all the loving. I do all the loving. And then so that when I ask, they're not like, who is this person running a webinar? We don't even know who she is.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's actually a great way to do it, Susan. I like it. I should maybe implement that into my sheet as well. Because like sometimes we forget, because we're doing so many things, we don't know where we put the information we put, right?
Yes.
And another thing it just kind of popped into my head as you were talking is when you're actively engaged inside of a group, it becomes easy for you to even approach one of the admins and say, hey, I have a 3-day or 3 videos that I can do on, let's say for me it would be group building, like maybe 3 different live videos I can do with a mini training for your group. Would that be interesting to your audience, kind of thing? So that, again, because you're engaged in the group, the admin actually sees, because every time somebody engages in your group, the admins get a notification, right? Hopefully they haven't turned it off.
If they've set it up right.
And so they would recognize your name and they would see that you're actively participating in the conversation. So for them, it's a win-win, because a big part of creating a group also, or a benefit, is that you're not doing all of the heavy lifting after a while. Right? Your members are posting and they're contributing to the content flow. So you don't feel like, oh my goodness, what am I going to post about this week? Because there's always activity happening, right? And for an admin of a group, that might actually be a great, help that you're giving. If you say, hey, I will do a 3-day training series in your group, that actually creates more engagement for them inside, right? So yeah, just wanted to add that because that kind of popped into my head.
That was a really good one. And I just noticed the time already, because honestly, I could talk to you about this for hours. Let me just take a quick look and see if there are any questions that I can answer. People must have questions here. Hello, Rita. Hello, Wendy. Rita, we talked about you at the beginning. I don't know if you heard us. And Kathleen is here, and Matt and Joanne. Thanks for coming, you guys. Does anyone have any questions? I know Kathy is here on Zoom. I don't know if she has the ability to chat, if she wants any questions. But she can let me know and I'll get back to you. You guys, so Nilu, where can people find out more about you? What group should we go join? What email list should we get on?
So I need to talk to you about email lists, by the way.
Oh my God, I could talk all day about email lists.
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook. My group is called Group Growth for Tribe Builders. That's the official name. I'm I've been I've been told my group name is way too long because it's actually, if you go on Facebook and search it, it will come up as Group Growth and Sales for Tribe Builders.
Got it.
So
I'm
it's
putting it in
going to
the,
change to just Group Growth for Tribe Builders pretty soon.
got it.
My membership says it's hard to introduce the group to people. So
And honestly, I kept getting stuck when I was trying to tag you in a few things. I was getting stuck and I was ending up on Rachel Miller's
ah,
growth or something thing, right? So, but that's good for you that, well, not, it could go both ways. People could be looking for
right.
her and get you.
Right, exactly.
Thank you,
Um,
Rita.
no, I love Rachel Miller. I honestly learn a ton from her. I mean, I don't use probably the same strategies that she does in
Right.
terms of growing and nurturing the group, but I love her. Like, she's such a heart-centered lady, and she does some amazing stuff. So,
Yeah,
um,
I've been following. Well, my friend Rachel Kaczynski, she owns Healthy Chicks. I figured I'd give her a shout out here. Um, she started a group only a couple months ago, and man, she's killing it. It's Spark Your Bliss Women. I should put that in here too. But I love to watch what she's doing. Like, she's studied, and maybe she should kind of probably join into your group too. She's studied, she's getting coached, and that whole thing about the engagement
mhm.
and really giving that strategy and opening your heart and being generous and a resource for people where they're spending their time. I mean, who's not spending a lot of time on Facebook these days?
Right,
Yeah.
right. I think in terms of engagement, the biggest tip I can give anybody who's watching is look for, learn more about your customers, learn more about your members, what's important to them. Ask questions, like a lot of them, right? And keep asking them, because as your audience grows, you might be attracting different types of people that have different likes and dislikes. When you know what those likes, dislikes, beliefs, values are, it becomes a whole lot more easier to have those conversations and build up the engagement.
Mm.
One of the big things I see a lot of people, a lot of group owners do wrong. Number one, they go into it without a proper strategy. Um, Number two is they use the community as their own pet project, right? And that is not, they don't do it with intention, right? Like, it's not conscious. Sometimes we do it subconsciously because we're always looking for ways to improve me, right? So we forget to put the focus back on the customer or the group member. So making sure every time you post something, ask yourself, is this going to serve them or is it serving me?
Gotcha.
Right?
I love that. Love that. Do have a question. One of my um, contacts is here on Zoom, and she is trying to put together a group for people who want to foster their creativity. She's a gifted artist. She just like this, and she's got something gorgeous, and she wants to foster creativity in adults and children. And so to be able to get a group going where people get creative and then share within the group.
Mm-hmm.
What would be in your opinion, how could can you give her some free advice? How can we bring people into the group, right? One. And then the second thing is, once they're there, how do you get people to enter in there and get and to share, right? There's like a barrier sometimes, like, oh, I don't know if I should I share it? I don't know if I should. Like, well, how do we make people come? And then once they're there, how do we make them shine?
So I'll answer the second one first. How do you
Okay.
make people shine? That has to do with a ton of market research. I mean, I can't say that enough. Allocating time in your week to make sure that you're reaching out to people that you feel are your ideal customer, and then getting their feedback, writing it down or recording it on Zoom so you can capture those keywords they're using to describe their problem, to describe their, whatever that inspires them even, right? Because, a lot of people say, okay, figure out what their problem is. That's where the solution is. But we don't always, not everybody at least, we don't always focus on our problems. We focus on the things that we love, that drive us, and, that inspire us too, right? So don't just focus on the problem and figure out how do I solve the problem. Also figure out where they're at in their life, and what are their dreams, and where do they want to go. And those are key things that you can use for engagement building, right? Especially in a group community where you're trying to build that fosters creativity. They're coming there for that inspiration, for that, experience as a community, as a tribe, right? So you want to really bring that into focus.
That's fabulous.
Right.
Yes.
As
So
far
I
as
think that's what you're saying, is that that's the missing part. Like, people will just say, I'm going to make a group.
Right.
And then I'll start, right? But the idea is to first be in groups,
right.
or have conversations with many people, and then start to foster them in that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? It might sound like, oh, I don't have time to do those, have those conversations. Honestly, if you say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do, I'm going to call it market research or what have you, and then I'm going to have 4 conversations a week, that's a lot. I mean, that is a lot of time. If you say, half an hour per person, sometimes it goes up to 40 minutes because you're chatting away and you make those really good connections. It is a lot of time, but it will pay off as you go, right? Because not only for your group, it will also help you solidify your ICA, understand, the keywords that you could use in your emails even, right? So, putting time to really invest into talking to people it has helped me so much more than I could just say, oh, it's built my group. Gotcha. Right?
So good. Thank you for that, Nilu. Thank you. Awesome stuff. Oh my goodness, I've kept you a long time. I want to be mindful of your time. So you guys, I'll put Nilu's link in there to her group again, and her email address. Is there anything else you want people to know?
Right now, not really.
Okay. I think
you can obviously follow me on my page, but I'm not really active like that on there.
Yeah.
I am on Instagram as well. If anybody's on Instagram and want to connect, that's one place I like to share a ton of what's going on behind the scenes. Because, I love stories.
Yes, I can tell that. And I've followed Nilu's group, the one that she mentioned, and I also have seen her present in Rita's group, the Happy Catalyst. And I always learn something. I always. And the way that I love the way you present it, Nilu, is you make it feel authentic and from the heart. Nothing you say, even though you're giving the strategies, and even though, like, now we know behind the scenes, oh, she's going in and having conversations just to bring people back to her group. But that doesn't feel spammy to me. It feels real. Like, you've got to find your people, and where are you going to find them but with conversation? And then you've got to use, authentic attraction to bring them back and keep that engagement going.
Right. And, I want to kind of bring one point back, Rita, not Rita, Susan. We kept saying Rita's name.
Right.
We love you, Rita. One point I want to focus on too, like, as you build out your group, as you have these conversations, you are going to be able to find more of a pattern in terms of what kind of content that engages people in your community, right? What resonates. And you can at some point automate some of those things as well. Like, you don't have to always be going out and talking to people in order to bring people in, right? There's lots of different ways that you can position your group. So here's maybe two things, simple things that you can do. Number one, if you have a shopping cart, at the end of when the thank you page comes up, put your group link in there, right? Because if somebody's already buying from you, that means they're interested in you and your product, they very well might want to have other inside secrets of what's going on in your business, and have that keep that conversation going. That's one place. The other place you can have it is anytime you're putting out a slide deck or a lead magnet, put your group link in there, right? So making sure that you're putting your group, sharing it everywhere you can is really important, and it also helps with backlinks, right?
Exactly. It's so interesting to hear you say this, because we like have these parallel lives with you with the Facebook and with me with the email marketing. And it's basically what I say to people too. If your goal is to build your group, then put that link everywhere. If
Right.
your goal is to build your email list, then put that lead generator, that freebie link everywhere, and then have a series to nurture them in, which a group is very nurturing, and an email sequence or a funnel is very nurturing.
Hmm.
Awesome.
And yeah, and you're absolutely right. You don't have to make it like this one goal. So again, depending on your strategy, if your goal is to get people on your list, once they opt into the list, direct them to your group,
Right,
because
right.
that's the next step in creating that conversation. People who are really opting into your email list because they're like, ooh, I like this person, I like their content, may want to very well interact with you at a different level. People who are just opting in to get that freebie and most likely never read your email again, well, that's okay too.
Right. Right.
Right.
That's right. I mean, however many, like it's a numbers game, but then it's also you and one conversation with one person.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So good. We'll take this offline and chat some more. I want to thank you again for coming. You guys check out Nilu. I'll put more details in the chat in a little bit. And then this will be on YouTube, so you'll be able to share it. And I'll have it on my blog. So once I post it there, I'd love for anybody who's listening now, you'll be able to share from there. You can't share from this group because it's a private group, but please do share with anybody you know who's trying to either build their own group or make use of the groups that they're in order to attract people to their content. Thank you, Nilu.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.